it's like a weird saying. I have like, sometimes I'll be like, man, that's a real Anglo-Saxon way of looking at things. Not saying all white people.
We all got an opinion, but can you back yours up? Where you get your sources from? Hope that don't got you stuck. We gon' check you and your understanding of knowledge. That's regardless if you finished school or went to college. Not everything is as black and white as it seems. This show here is about expressing what you mean. Whether you get canceled or whether you get flagged. Welcome to the Cancel Podcast with Elliott and Jay.
So hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Cancel Podcast, where we aim to challenge one's own thoughts by bringing unique, creative, and potentially divisive topics to the table for discussion. And as always, it's your boy Darius, aka Jay, representing Legendary Media Group. Today I have two special guests with me, Mr. Aaron Davis, as well as Mr. Dave Jordan. And today we're going to actually talk about masculinity and what really is masculinity. Like, let's explore what that is. So I want to start it off by saying, what is your interest in this particular topic? Like, what kind of drawn you into this episode and why you want to talk about masculinity specifically? And either one, you can go first on that.
Well, shoot, I think it's interesting because every time I look out in the world today, I look on Facebook, I look on different social media platforms. Everywhere I see, if the word masculinity is used, 90% of the time, toxicity is applied with it. So it's almost like being masculine is a negative in society. At least that's the way I'm viewing social media. And when I talk to people, like that's what their view is. So for me, I'm like, man, a lot of the things that I see that are considered masculine, to the world, that's not really my idea of masculinity, and that's not really my how I was brought up.
Okay.
You know, from the men that were in my family. So my whole view on masculinity is totally different. I'm like, yo, you talking about that's not even masculine. To me, that's feminine. So, you know, I wanted to be on this episode to kind of like clarify my thoughts and my feelings on the matter.
Okay. Aaron, how about you?
Likewise, I would definitely say that when it comes to masculinity, first off, I'm a man, identify as such, have been for all my life. I think that when it comes to masculinity, there is so many different viewpoints on it. And it's also, I think more so in this generation, what I've been seeing on social media, it's turned into something that people look at through their own personal eyes, meaning like, dating and masculinity, in my personal opinion, are being totally misconstrued. They're not, you know what I'm saying? They're not being treated as two separate type of ideals, in general, masculinity is very clearly defined. You can look at through biological lens or, what have you, but it's very clearly defined. I feel like today people are just, making it fit their own viewpoint.
Okay. So you bring in like the defining masculinity. What would masculinity defined be for you? Like, what would your definition of masculinity be?
For me, I'm very simplistic. Case in point, if you are born a man or you identify as a man and you exhibit qualities of manhood based on biological, functions and everything like that, or in terms of how, you identify socially, like, I guess you could talk about in terms of testosterone. If you have higher level amounts of testosterone and you identify as a man, that's cool too. But I think in general, it's just, identify as a man. That's what I am. And I live my life as such. Now, societal definitions differ, what I'm saying, especially based off where you come from and, who raises you, what area of the world you're born into. But as far as you just being born into this world and you identify as a man, I'm like, okay, cool. You know what I'm saying? That's what you are. And that's what I'm going to address you as.
Okay. And David, what about you? What is your definition?
A lot of my definitions goes back to my morals and my principles. So for me, big part of my morals and principles is I was raised Christian, and I come from like the Bible perspective with my morals and principles. And like for me, I think that's just like a respect thing that the world don't really have. Is I can have morals. I don't have to infringe upon your rights or something like that. But from where my morals come, my perspective comes. That's how humans operate, you know. And I don't think people can control my perspective, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I don't even know if I asked that question correctly. I kind of went on a tangent, but
it's one of those weird questions, man. That's like,
like I have the perspective of masculinity. The traits come from the Bible. It's pretty much the simple answer to that question without context.
Okay, so if I would have to ask about that from the more biblical, more religious based background in that, would you say masculinity is more so tied into like the gender specific roles that individuals have to have? Like a man has these type of roles and titles that they must adhere to, versus a woman having these particular roles and titles and responsibilities that they have to adhere to.
Well, I think a lot of the traits for men just make sense off of our roles as hunters, out of our roles as protectors. Like, we can't protect our family if we're making emotional decisions. So that's going to be suppressed a lot, you know, because the wrong decision means we lose our family, you know. And I always say, like, it's simple to me. Logically, if somebody comes in your house, say you're married, man, wife, somebody comes in your house and you have kids, they come in with a gun. What are the roles going to be? Like, naturally, the role is going to be the one that is going to go to the kids and protect the kids. The man is going to protect everybody else, and they're going to confront the problem. That's just like biologically what would be natural in that situation. So I think a lot of the instincts and a lot of that stuff is natural. I'm not saying like women can't do it. I'm not saying men are shoehorned into a certain way to do it, but I'm saying, like, logically, the perspectives from the Bible make sense a lot of times.
Okay. So, go ahead.
So, yeah, I agree with him on a lot of those aspects. I would push back a little bit in terms of like, and we're talking about older societies, like, you know, Native American, indigenous hunter-gatherer societies, you know, and it has been proven that that ideal that we're taught, like, oh, the men go out and hunt. A lot of scientists have actually, you know, did research and discovered that there are female skeletons that also hunted with the men. So there are, from these tribes, men and women that did share that role as far as going out and hunting. You know, if you're a part of a society, it's all about working together for the greater good, for the greater needs of society. So that's the only thing. Yeah, that's the only thing I would push back on. Other than that, I agree with him 100%, you know, in terms of logically, you know, I do think men are more logical creatures. I think that's just something that comes to us, you know.
Okay, so it seems like, and either you can interrupt me if I'm wrong on this. So it seems like more so masculinity is being correlated with a more logistical approach versus femininity being much more of an emotional approach. Is that?
I agree. Yeah, okay. And we have both. I just want to put that out there too. We have both, but I think in terms of men, our logic is more dominant than our emotional.
Like statistically.
Yeah, more. Statistically. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So one question I'll have in terms of like, do you think that the masculine and feminine principles can kind of cross gender roles and kind of like, you know, like, is this something that's just inherent to men, or is it something that women could actually utilize and, you know, base their foundation on? So like one case study I wanted to bring up was how we talk about like Megan Thee Stallion, Cardi B, other women that are deemed like more masculine because of their approach to what traditional feminism, like it doesn't work with them. Like the fact that they're so vocal, that they're so in your face, and they're really just saying, this is who I am, and exuberating some high level of confidence, that would traditionally be considered masculine. But yet they still, in terms of how they dress and how they carry themselves, is still considered very feminine, very, you know, very soft in terms of their physique and everything like that. So what are your takes on that in terms of women actually being incapable of having the same kind of what's traditionally deemed as masculine principles?
I'll say when it comes to it, like I still look at them as feminine. They don't really come across to me as masculine. They're kind of they got brash styles, which I guess some people could look at as masculine, but Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, not really masculine. You know, and that goes back to like some racial things, like you know, like society, stronger women are looked at as masculine, you know, like let's say black women, they have more definition in their body, more muscle, just regularly, like bigger, you know, bigger butts, bigger glutes, like they have a lot more muscle, you know. And I think a lot of that stuff comes down to like race and the perception of the people that were over those views. So, you know, over the media or whatever, and they kind of pass that outlook down. But to me, they're not masculine. I mean, look at the Megan Thee Stallion situation. I think what's her boy name that shot her in the foot? I think that was hella feminine. You know what I mean? Like shot a woman in the foot. You know what I mean?
Tory
like,
Lanez.
Yeah, Tory Lane, like, bruh, I mean, I know you 5'2" or whatever, but come on, bro, you shot a woman in the foot. So I don't know. I think the world is confused as to what masculine is because they're not going off a set of principles. They're going off of ideals. And in my opinion, a lot of that comes from emotion.
And I'm so glad that he brought that up, kind of brought race up into the mix because one thing that we have to understand when we have this conversation about masculinity and femininity, Black women are deemed as more masculine than white women. That has just been the case. There are studies that looked at that. We live under a racist system. So, of course, when you live under a racist system where white people are elevated, white women are going to be the pinnacle of femininity. And then Black women who are at the bottom are going to be deemed as masculine, you know, based on society's eyes. No matter how much she puts makeup on, her hair done, what have you. You know what I'm saying? And I think, interestingly enough, when you look at Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B, a lot of the pushback is coming from white men and Black men who subscribe to the idea of what is masculinity through a white gaze. So this idea that, oh, they're too outspoken. Okay, that deems them as masculine. They're you know, making this music about having sex when they're the ones that should be chased. They're the ones doing the chase. You know what I'm saying? You have this pushback because of confident talk about what they rap about, you know, and how they are in public. You know, I've never seen Cardi B or Megan Thee Stallion in an interview meek, you know, just kind of, you know, just on the microphone, just they're full of life and full of personality. And for some reason that translates into masculinity for some reason.
Right. Well, I would say traditionally, though, having that brash persona, being more outspoken, being more confident, that's usually more in line with what's masculine by the traditional definitions, right? In terms of femininity, that's usually viewed as submissive and kind of soft-spoken and much more, you know, kind of in the room but not leading the room, at least from the American perspective. Because I did actually do some research, and it's actually kind of flipped a little bit in terms of like Asian cultures, where it's like instead of viewing the man as, you know, you have to be the what is it, like the ultra aggressor, the protector, things of that nature, their definition, and this is just off me doing some research online, was more so focused on just being a provider, and that's pretty much it. Whatever's happening in the household is the only priority. Other than that, you don't have to worry about any other kind of situations kind of put on you outside of the household. You won't be frowned upon or, you know, upheld for doing so. So you don't have to necessarily be like the superhero that David was kind of aligning to earlier. It's more so of, do you take care of your family? Are they protected? Are they comfortable living?
So you're saying that the roles aren't defined, like it's individual to your relationship.
I wouldn't necessarily say that's the case. I would say in terms of a general aspect, it may not be just relationship based, but how so people view one another on a whole, on a large perspective. Because like let's just say if we were in like a business meeting, right? And if the woman was leading the meeting and she was considered loud or anything like that, like it's frowned upon, you know? Like it's looked at as some form of misalignment to kind of say like, oh, she's a woman, she shouldn't necessarily speak this way. But if a man were to do the same thing, you know, it's kind of praised. They're They're the ones in the room, like being more
They're
masculine,
also
taking control.
right.
Yeah.
Even though that may be part of her job. Like if she works in HR, if she works in a managed position, and she's that's part of your job title, to be outspoken, to, you know, lead essentially a company.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's up to a man to be responsible. If a woman's in a position of power or love, you got to respect that. So, you know, I do think a lot of the way a woman will act when they're in power is because of the way that the dudes respond to the way she acts when she's regular. Like they might not listen to her when she, you know, not on 10. So to get up in the corporate world and to move up that ladder, she might have to be cutthroat. She might have to be, you know, an a-hole or whatever to move up in that world and things like that. You know, that tends to be her personality in business because that's what works. You know, I can't speak to that though.
So what I would say is like, so as you said, like that's just kind of how it is. That's how it kind of works. Wouldn't that kind of be leaning more towards like the aspect of like the toxicity that you mentioned earlier, like in terms of toxic masculinity? Because I remember me and you chatted a little bit where you're saying like you're not necessarily, you don't believe in the aspect of like toxic masculinity. It's just kind of, you know, you have the roles defined. You can be masculine or you can be feminine, right?
Right.
Okay, so would you? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I would say masculinity is a defined role, and I think that a lot of things what people are saying toxic masculinity, it's not masculinity. Like that's something extra on top of it. Like I have a defined view of masculinity, and I think a lot of the things that people are saying toxic and are considering masculine is like, it's like a weird saying. I have like. Sometimes I'll be like, man, that's a real Anglo-Saxon way of looking at things. Not saying all white people all white people are like this, but the society that we created and the way that everything trickles down, this is society through a wealthy white man's eyes. And that's just,
like a
it is what
like,
it
point
is.
Of view, kind of. Yeah.
Right. And this is their rules that we're playing by. You know, and a lot of times, like, I don't think what's considered masculine to them is necessarily masculine. You know, and I think when people say toxic masculinity, they're referring to masculinity through their eyes, which don't, to me, is not the true eyes of masculinity.
Okay. So what would you say, like, what are some things that would, what are some of the things that you consider are being labeled as toxic masculinity that shouldn't be?
You just hit me with a question, bro. Give your boy a couple seconds.
Got you, man.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, you know, for me, it's and I'm gonna do a shameless plug because I've been reading this book. I don't know if you guys are familiar with a dude named Jason Wilson. He's an author, a motivational speaker, and everything like that.
Okay.
You know, check his Instagram out. He posts a whole bunch of, you know, influential quotes and stuff. But one thing about him, and you know, here's his book right here. Shameless plug, right? You know, Cry Like a Man. That he wrote, you know what I'm saying? And he talks about his life and how to, you know, move past your trauma as men. And one thing that he says that this is kind of how I define it, masculinity in itself is not toxic. You know what I'm saying? They're just the base form of masculinity. Now, masculinity can become toxic when, as a man, you allow that to rule your life in terms of, you know, letting your trauma get to you. You know, trauma you may have gone through as a boy and you grow into a man and you holding on to that trauma. You know, I have to treat women this way. I have to treat women violent because, you know, these hoes don't know how to act, quote unquote. You know what I'm saying? That's when we get into the toxic shit because you're essentially allowing your trauma to rule you as a man instead of being the man that you're supposed to be and, you know, making sure you take care of your family, making sure that you do certain things that, you know, are expected of you as a man. And I think for me, that's kind of how I view it. You know, so when people say toxic masculinity, I'm kind of like, okay, let's move a step forward. Let's look at why you're calling this man toxic. What is he doing that is exhibiting toxic behaviors? Let's not call masculinity toxic, but let's see this man's behavior, you know?
Okay. Well, I'll say so, like dealing with the traditional gender roles and their kind of definitions, some of the results of what was considered masculine back then, that's what kind of led to, you know, these traditional stereotypes of men being unemotional, unavailable, like they're not able to express themselves properly, an overexertion of like dominance, as well as what's another one I could think of, just like pure aggressiveness. And some people deem that as toxic behavior because that limits the amount of growth that we can have as men. You know, like for me, I'm personally fine showcasing my emotions, whether it's through explanations, physically, verbally, whatever. But I will say that's definitely a small population. And only now by identifying it are we now able to really get those kind of feelings out there to the main, to the mainstream, and allow men to kind of say like, hey, you need help. You don't need to internalize it, because those traditional men don't cry, like even like with the book you just mentioned, like the opposite would be the men don't cry. And that's what kind of leads to additional trauma later on. That's what leads to, these brash brawls, the shootings, the killings, suicides, all types of things, because we were taught not to express ourselves because emotions are deemed feminine. And that's why,
case in point, I tell you, if you were to have like 10 men, right? And just random men that you met on the street or whatever, and you asked them, if you really are going through it, would you be comfortable, a normal human emotion, would you be comfortable crying in public? 9 times out of 10, I can tell you most of those men would not be comfortable, and they would tell you, hell no.
Yeah, I'll keep it a stack. I'm not trying to cry in public. You know what I mean? Like, I guess if a situation arose, it might happen, but I'm not trying to do that. And that is part of the masculinity.
Mm-hmm. So,
and I say it could be anything. We're talking about, you got news that your grandfather just died. The fact that the fact that that's really unhealthy. Not necessarily, I guess, crying in public, but the fact that a normal human emotion, somebody that you got news that a loved one died, passed away, and you would be comfortable just letting your emotions out. To me, that's when we get into an issue. That's where it's kind of like, okay, now we have to look at something as to why that's an issue, as to why, you wouldn't be comfortable just letting your emotions go. But I think it's something that, we have to look deeper into.
Yeah. Okay.
And I do think it's a time and a place for everything, like depending on your setting, it might not be the time and the place to let your emotions just fly, and I think that's a big issue is in society is emotions are rampant.
Mm-hmm.
And controlling, in my opinion, controlling a lot of the decisions in society, when I think principles should be controlling a lot of those decisions.
Okay, I can see what you're getting at, but that makes sense to me. See, because like I think so in terms of
having emotional intelligence.
Yeah, emotional intelligence. Yeah, that's right. See, because the one thing I will say is like usually, and I hate to go like a very binary kind of approach to this too, it always seems like it always comes down to logic or emotion. And it's like, it seems like there's always that aspect of, why can't they coexist with one another, And it seems like since you both agree that masculinity will be more so aligned with logic, why should we feel obligated to let our emotions kind of take the backseat versus emotions being, natural to all human beings?
Well, I will say something, and I'll put it in the context of fighting because I'm a professional fighter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Professional fighting, I fight by my principles, but when I get in trouble, I use my emotions to push through. If that makes sense. So a lot of the things I'm doing when I'm fighting, like I'm punching, I'm doing good, I'm whatever. It's when I need my emotions where like I draw strength from my emotions, if that makes sense. So emotions aren't a bad thing. Unchecked emotions is a bad thing because you're gonna feel something about everything, but you not identifying those emotions, you not just simply being out of control with your emotions. I feel like that's probably what people are considering toxic.
That's a very valid point. Aaron, did you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, and I say this, and it's my 27 years living on this earth, I can tell you straight up, whether you're a man or a woman, regardless, but we're talking about men today, logic is not enough. You need to have both. And when you said why can't they coexist, they need to coexist. If I'm building a plan, right, I cannot build this plan on logic alone. I have to have that emotion side of me to help work with this plan. You know what I'm saying? And that's with anything in life. And I think that's where we get into the issue, is that when you're only logic based, you're missing out on a whole nother part of your humanity. When you're only emotional based, you're missing out on a whole nother part of your humanity, you know? And I think they coexist and they complement each other well. And that's really been the struggle that I see in societies. People don't know how to manage both. They don't know how to let one be dominant and one take the back seat for a little bit, and then, you know, reverse it and switch it, and then let them coexist in the same body. I think that has really been what the issue is. When we look at masculinity, it's like, okay, work. Say I'm at work, right? And I'm having a meeting. Obviously, logic has to be present. But because I have other people there, emotion also has to be present. You see, I think that's Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's a challenging question for both of you then. So would you say that your views on masculinity and femininity are driven internally or societally? Like, in terms of, how did you come up with your foundation of, I am a man, I'm considering myself masculine?
When you say internally, you're saying like by the principles we grew up with, like the way we learned, the way we lived our life, our experiences?
However, whatever answer fits best for you. But yeah, but it's like, as of today, like, know comfortably that you consider yourself a masculine man, like, what kind of led to those principles? Is it something that is inherent through your experiences, or is it something that society is kind of like put onto you to say, this is the mold that you have as a man? You know, like this, like, for example, on a social level, it's like we're given the action figures versus women given like the Barbies and the dolls and everything. So for us, we kind of internalize where it's like, oh, we need to be that macho, strong, wrestler toy that we need it to be. Like, do you feel like it's more so those kind of societal aspects, or is it something that as you live your day by day, that's what allows you to reinforce you being a masculine man?
It's a mix of both. You know, like, as humans, it just is what it is, bro. Like, we emulate what we see. So even if it's subconscious, if we're subject to it, if we're present to it, if, you know, everything we see, we're going to emulate if we see it enough. So internally, yeah, what I learned, how my principles growing up, that's a lot of me being a man. But, you know, I see men every day, and I have to kind of compare the two. Like, is that right? Like, I find myself literally throughout the day always looking at stars, always looking at athletes. And I'm like comparing that to my internal beliefs, and I'm like, is this correct or is this not? So I think that's like an everyday struggle that I have. I have my principles, and then I'm matching that to my experiences.
Okay. So one hard question I'll say. So in terms of like how the definition of masculinity is kind of like changed over like recent years, right? So there has been like several movements to kind of like remove gender from the equation as a whole, to really just get to this point of like non-gender conforming, and more like, you know, gender neutral kind of beliefs and everything. So like in terms of like Lil Nas X, Young Thug, Kid Cudi, recent artists like that, what are either of your perspectives on what they consider masculine and what they're trying to showcase to the world, and if it conflicts with traditional masculinity? And for those who are listening that aren't familiar with it, where it's like the wearing of dresses, the wearing of heels, doing things that were traditionally considered the opposite gender, or, you know, more in line with femininity. They're now trying to take it over to a stance that says they can both be masculine and feminine.
You got it, AJ?
Yeah, I got you. I would say as artists, they're allowed to express themselves however they want to. Let's just throw it out there. I think, and this is the thing, right? There are some things that need to be gender neutral. And when I say gender neutral, I mean very specific things that are specific to both genders. I.e. cooking, cleaning, certain things of that nature that we have. And thankfully, we were moving past that. I will say that when it comes to clothing, that's always a big thing, right? Like, here's the thing. Do I think putting on a dress makes somebody less masculine? I don't know them internally, so I can't speak on that. I think societal wise, how we view masculinity, yes. But, you know, I think that's a personal decision that as an artist or as somebody that you decide to make. And, you know, the ramifications from society, because even though I am not going to judge you for doing that, we live in a society that will judge you for doing that. You know what I'm saying? Wish it wasn't like that. Wish everybody could do what they want to do, but it don't work like that. You know, and my biggest thing is just for people who want to push those gender norms, be cognizant. You know, when we talk about Lil Nas X in particular, you know, as an artist, he you know, that's what he does. He pushes the boundaries, and he has his rights to express himself, you know, and clearly he doesn't care because he'll troll anybody that comes for him in his sexuality. You know what I'm saying? He's like, I'm gay. I know I'm gay, you know? So I think it's dependent on the individual. Society's going to judge you either way. So it's contingent on what you want to do. You know what I'm saying?
Right. But even internally, them pushing that norm, pushing that kind of narrative, that aligns with more of the traditional aspect of masculinity. Even though socially, like what's being shown on the physical aligns with more femininity, but the fact that they're exuberating confidence and you know, willing to push that boundary towards growth, that technically is masculine, is it not?
Well, my thing is being pushy is not being masculine. In my opinion, like Lil Nas, there's nothing masculine about the dude that I've seen. And I mean, like in terms of what I think masculine is, I'm not judging whether you're a good person or a bad person. I'm just saying nothing that he's done, in my opinion, exudes masculinity. But I will say, because you do some things that are feminine doesn't mean you're not a masculine person as well. Because you could go look at somebody like Russell Westbrook. Like 3 days ago, I seen a picture of the dude doing like a fashion walk in a dress. Well, you know what I mean? Very feminine act. Does that mean he's not masculine as well? Because I seen the dude on a basketball court. Not saying, you know what I mean? So it's not like a total like, oh, you did one thing, so you're a feminine dude. You did a feminine action to me. That, you know, and I think that's like something that we have to like separate from. I could say something is feminine and not call you a feminine person because I don't know. I just know that act was feminine. I just made a judgment on if I thought the act was feminine or masculine. That's all.
Okay. I could agree with that then. So what, Aaron, go ahead, Aaron.
And it's like, it's difficult, right? Because I feel like we have being raised in this society, we have a like binary, simplistic view of what masculinity is, right? What men do and what women do. I do think it varies based on the individual. You know, just to, you know, throw my own, you know, personal stuff out there. It's one of those things that like, there's some things that even I do that some people consider feminine. For one, I'm really into my skincare. You know what I'm saying? You look at my bathroom, I've probably got like 12 products right now. There have been men that have told me like, dog, like, you know what I'm saying? And in my head, I'm thinking, okay, I don't see how taking care of your body and skin would be seen as feminine, but that's their view of masculinity. You know what I'm saying? And that's my biggest issue. I think we need to move past these binary, simplistic ideals. You know what I'm saying? You know, same thing going out. Let's say you go out to dinner, right? And to this day, if you, as a man, if you order a fruity cocktail and you're around other guys, they're going to look at you some kind of way.
Yeah.
And to me, again, that's still a simplistic view.
Sure.
You said what?
You're getting roasted for sure. But
exactly.
I agree because they taste way better.
And they're stronger. Like one of my boys I remember I was talking to, he would exclusively order Cosmos because they're stronger and they're cheaper. And he looked past that aspect. He looked past the societal aspect and say like, it's a feminine drink. And he was like, it's stronger and it's less expensive. Go ahead, give me one.
Like you're still drinking alcohol, but yeah. Even then, you
with
know,
the glass and everything. Yeah, with the little.
See, but my thing is that goes all the way back to what I was saying. If you're principled, what the heck is masculinity? Like, that's society saying stuff, but it got nothing to do, in my opinion, with masculinity whatsoever. So like I'm constantly. That's why I'm saying my experience and my principles are constantly like I'm pushing that against each other because I could be in that situation. Where I'm like, well, I order what drink I want to. I really could care less because I don't know what masculinity is.
You feel me? Yeah, like
right. You know, now I don't personally drink that stuff, but I really don't drink. If I do, a lot of times it's Hennessy. If I do drink, Henny is sweet tea. You gotta try it. Fire. But
let them know. Let them know.
Gotta try it. Man, I mean, not that I'm advocating for drinking because I really don't drink like that. But,
yeah, we ain't got no sponsors, so you can't be dropping names like that. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, my fault. Brown and Hennessy. I mean,
No, I'm kidding.
Sweet tea, yeah, man. I had to drop it one more on accident, but it's just it is what it is. Like you gotta know what you believe, and if you don't know what you believe, which most people don't, ask them to define like hate. Ask them to define masculinity. Like it's hard to define, and if you've never looked at it, you just go for what people say, almost like program. Like is me disagreeing with somebody else's view of masculinity hate?
Mm-hmm.
Nah, but I guarantee you a lot of people on social media will be like, oh yeah, because you think that's feminine, you hate them. Do you really know what hate means, brother? I don't hate them, I just think that's feminine.
Yeah.
But it's his choice.
And it doesn't mean that you can't coexist with somebody that is less masculine than you or, displays higher amounts of femininity. I think that's another thing that we've got to move past, this idea that, because I'm masculine, I can't hang out with a dude that's less masculine than me. That's neither here nor there. You know what I'm saying? I think that's just how he chooses to live his life. You feel me? You know what I'm saying? Like when you brought up Kid Cudi, wearing a dress. I'm personally not wearing no dress, but I still think Kid Cudi is a dope rapper and a dope artist. You feel me?
Right.
Well, one thing I'll bring up then too. So in that regard, in terms of like the hierarchy and tiers of like masculinity, like what are both your thoughts on, alpha males and beta males? Because like that's something that in terms of masculinity, that's something that is kind of, being reinforced within the male community by certain individuals. And I'll say like a decent amount. Like I know some, very red pill people. Like I've met them before and it's like, this is, I want to be that alpha. I don't want to be that beta. And there's like a clear distinction between the two in their eyes. Ooh, we got silence. Ooh.
I'm gonna keep it real, bro. The description, I forgot the question. Listening to the description. Can you say that one more time?
So what are your thoughts on the whole personality of alpha and betas in terms of masculine hierarchies? And is that something that you subscribe to or believe in?
Well, testosterone and masculinity got clear correlations, but the way people act when they're high on testosterone a lot of times are out of control, and it's not masculine to not have control over yourself. You know what I mean? Like that's not a masculine thing to do. And a lot of people that are high up on their alpha testosterone crap, they're like, I look at them a lot of times. I'm like, everybody looking at this as masculine, but to me, like I don't know what that is.
That should be like reclassified as like something else.
That is toxic, but that's not masculinity, my boy. Yeah, I mean, the way you're acting is you're out of pocket because masculinity got a lot more to do with love and caring than, in my principle, in my experience, than people say. So if you aren't operating out of love or care or protection, then it's not masculine, my boy. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I see. By your definition, I agree with that 100%. Because I will say, traditionally, and this is just my interpretation of it, I feel like it's always been about dominance and submissiveness. That's the way I would always kind of like, kind of interpret that. Where it's like, who's trying to be that number one? Who's going to be the one that's calling all the shots versus who's going to listen and implement what they're told? Because like, this even correlates with like relationships between like men and women as well. Where it's like, because like I know that there were some terms I want to cover with y'all, like the idea of what a fuckboy is, right? Like for example, the internet describes it as a man who doesn't respect women, who's simultaneously dependent on women, but also engages in selfish behavior without, acknowledging when they hurt women or not. But it's more so about that aspect of being that dominant figure and having someone to rule over. That's what I'm more familiar with masculine. But I absolutely agree with your definition 100%. Like, I think it
Is a
should be about
fuckboy
that.
masculine? From that definition, is a fuckboy masculine?
Some people would say, yeah.
That you ain't like that. Was nothing that you said about that dude was masculine.
Mm-hmm.
My opinion.
Aaron, you're about to say something?
Yeah, and I said, I'm gonna have your comments on fire, bro, because they not gonna like my response to this when it comes to what we know as alpha and beta males, right? Because it's already been proven that when it comes to us as people, you know what I'm saying, humans, whatever you want to call us, they're man-made terms, and we ascribe those to what we think alpha and beta is, right? Like, I think the best example is a wolf pack. They always say you have an alpha wolf, whereas science has already disproven that. You have a wolf that is, stronger and leads the pack, but he doesn't always lead the pack. And he is dependent on the other wolves to make sure everything goes smoothly. You know what I'm saying? And furthermore, the other male wolves who aren't the leader of that pack, they still mate with other wolves. They still do things that wolves do. It's not like that type of hierarchy, but we try to take that and apply it to us as people. You feel me? Mm-hmm. And I think that's the biggest problem. Saying that an alpha male is this. One, it's a man-made term and it don't exist. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, it's people, and here go to the comments going, it's people wanting to prescribe something more important and give themselves a title. Oh, I'm an alpha male. Because the moment I ask them, what does that mean? They can't describe it. They're giving me normal, alpha male is a leader. Well, any man can be a leader. An alpha male takes care of his family. Most men do take care of their family. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's a label that you want to put to up masculinity when you already are masculine, dog. You already have those qualities. So why do you have to add alpha on top of it? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So how do you think we would move away from that approach of adding that hierarchy?
Understanding what masculinity is and living your life as such. You know what I'm saying? I think it's the pushback I see is a lot of those men, they feel like society is trying to emasculate them. So they feel like they have to exude this extra masculinity and add alpha. I'm an alpha male. I'm this, I'm that. You know what I'm saying? Instead of just living in a purpose, David brought up the Bible. If you're a Christian man and that's how you live your life, the Bible clearly defines what a man is. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to add anything extra onto that to be a man based on the Bible system, if that's what you believe in.
Okay. Can't you also say like the Bible is man-made principles as well, though?
It is. No, it is, definitely. I think it can be, depending on, you know what I'm saying, what your religion is and what you believe in. I think your life is defined by what you believe in, but I do think that getting back to basics in terms of, you don't have to exude this extra masculinity to move forward in life, to be the person that you want to be. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's ultimately where we need to go as a society. I think that's the biggest issue. And again, move past these linear definitions. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
I will say one thing though. A lot of the issue is we have idealism and we have human nature and we have what's just honest, like what's real. There's some aspects of human nature that we will not move past because that's just how we are as humans, and that's how some people are going to be. So it's some things we can learn, but you can't unlearn competition. You can't unlearn wanting to be the best at something, because those are inherent traits that make humans great. It's
Agreed.
How can you implement wanting to be the best to, as he said, your purpose. Yeah, I mean, and do you know your purpose? So you might have a leader that's the best at protecting the pack. Okay. But since he's the best at protecting the pack and nobody can beat him, like, what comes along with that? You know what I mean? There's certain things that are going to come along with that because he's not going to like to be challenged. What makes the best leader is someone that can be challenged and that can love and deal with the people that he's, that he's protecting or whatnot. Almost like, look at the Bible. it clearly tells a man how to treat his wife. Clearly states how to treat his wife. But if you don't know the Bible, the main word you're ever going to hear is a wife should submit to her man. That's the main thing anyone will ever say. But they'll never talk about how the Bible tells you to love your wife and how to treat your wife. When people say submit, the main people that you hear say submit, they treat their wives in ways that they're not supposed to treat their wives. You know what I mean? So you shouldn't even have to like refer to submit if you're treating your wife correctly. You know what I mean? It's just a term that almost like at the end of the day, like you are the leader of the household, and because your wife is precious to you, you're taking all of the pain on your back. So because you are leading that household, if you have a scandal, you might eat that scandal, you might take that on your back and keep that nipped under the bud for your wife. Like you're the shield of your family. You know what I mean? So you're stepping out front. And I think that goes back to the human nature.
Okay.
And understanding that, you know, submit doesn't mean put your wife in chains and she's a slave and everything like that. I think that's the big thing too, moving away from that definition of what we know as submit. You know, people hear submit and they think, you know, oh my God, you know, instead of really looking at a relationship and, you know, things that make a relationship successful.
Right. Well, okay.
You know
So
what's crazy, bro? One more thing. When the Bible talks about a wife, it's talking about the wife taking money and investing money. The Bible is talking about the wife doing all of these great things, not just living under her man's arms and doing nothing. It's talking about the things that the wife is doing to make the relationship prosperous. So it's not talking about an incapable woman. Yeah, I mean, people want to make it that, but that's not what the Bible is talking about. That's why I say a good woman is better than rubies. You know what I mean? Because if you have a woman that you don't even have to worry about, like when you get, she can just multiply. You know what I mean? Like that's a blessing. But, you know, you got to find a good woman as well. You know, so that goes both ways to choose your partner correctly. You need somebody compatible. You need somebody that can do the things that you want your wife to do.
Okay. See, I kind of like that y'all both added that and we kind of like pivoted towards like masculinity and like relationships, right? So like as I mentioned like with the term fuckboys earlier, it's like in opposition to that there's another term called simping. And so it's like simping's on the other end of the spectrum that says you know, if you are treating your partner nicely in a way that isn't about dominating, now it's frowned upon. So now it's like, you know, because you take that approach to say like my wife is everything, or even just general partner, you know, if you do that too much, now you're labeled as a simp and now you're disrespected for that. But then on the other side, if you're overly masculine and aggressive, it's labeled as a fuckboy. So it's like, it seems like there's never any real middle ground between them both.
One thing I will say.
Yeah, go ahead, bro.
Well, one thing I will say, I'm the biggest culprit of a dude that my homeboy, but it's because their roles and their perspectives change, and I notice it. It's like, hey, bro, you got a relationship, you simping. But then at the same time, it's like, but I love how you treat your woman. You know what I mean? So just because I make a joke about something, sometimes like me, like some people do get mad and they're actually like, oh, nigga, you're a simp. Pardon my French. I'm like, hey, bro, you simping a little bit. But that's your relationship. You know what I mean? So for me, I might see some controlling things going on in a relationship. I'm like, hey, bro, you know, you kind of simping a little bit. I probably step your foot down on certain things because I feel like you're just getting ran over. As a friend, I might be saying that, you know, but it's their relationship. I'm respecting the relationship still at the end of the day. If that's how y'all operate, that's how y'all operate. I mean, as a man, I got to be able to respect that as well.
That's right. Okay. Aaron, you about to say something too?
Yeah, that's hey, look at your comment section because it's going up. That's, to me, that's another word that needs to be either redefined or eliminated because I'm tired of hearing it, which is simp. Because we've moved past what the original definition is to now. What
is the original definition? Out of curiosity.
I'd have to look it up, man. It was real, like clearly defined. Let me see. Cause
I saw one online. It was just saying like a silly or foolish person. That was one definition.
That's not the
Essentially,
context we're looking for, though.
Yeah.
a simping person, and then there's one that they've kind of a new definition, and that's one that does too much for the person they like, which even that definition is weird to me. It's like, if this is my wife, right? Why would I not tell her that I love her every day? Why would I not do nice things for her? Why would I not do certain things? Now, what I will say is I wouldn't do those things to the detriment of myself. And I think that's where we kind of get into to me, if you want to say what my definition of simp is, when you are doing things, but you're not taken care of. That's a problem. That's an issue because you're not meeting your basic needs. But if you're good and you're taking care of your woman like you should, how is that a simp? That doesn't make any sense to me, ultimately. You know what I'm saying?
Because that's just contributing to a functioning relationship.
You know,
or look at that definition.
You know, and you look
I got a question for you, bro.
Yeah.
But knowing the way that a perspective that I see a lot is from women nowadays is this dude has to be doing this for me just to even be with me. Now, when you got a dude and maybe he wants that woman and he's doing this off the rip, which is kind of out of pocket, and you know it's out of pocket, and you call and you like, bro, you like you're simping because she's clearly taking advantage, and you know, and that's a wide perspective nowadays. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, is that because for me that's simping when you go and it's like, well, yeah, we just start talking, but I gotta pay your phone bill. Well, you simping, you paying their phone bill, and y'all just start talking. So I think that's rampant nowadays as well, because that's what women want, and they look good enough, and men are just gonna. A lot of men fall into that.
So would you say in that interpretation is much more on excessive treatment, like even outside of just like an established relationship, but just, you know, just excessive to the extent where it's just like, you know, you want to give them much more than they should be eligible for. So kind of like what we see like in the clubs, you know, buy a woman a drink kind of scenarios. Is that what you're saying?
Sort of, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it's almost like transactional. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it might not be necessarily money, but it's transactional. You know, like I've had women tell me like, "Oh, we've had sex, so I should be able to ask you for money." And I was like, "Well, nigga, I blessed you with dick. Sorry, but I blessed you." You know what I mean? Like, I'm not putting your pussy on a pedestal. Your pussy not worth more than my dick. You know what I mean? You can. What's the percentage of men that make a woman come? So, you know, like different things like that. I went off on a tangent, but
You're good. Yeah.
It's things like that. Like, why is your pussy inherently worth more than my dick? Why? You know what I mean? So I think that contributes like that view onto simping.
And in that aspect, I do agree with you. And I think that goes back to, you know, my point ultimately is that, especially like you said, if you've only been in a relationship for like a few weeks, few months, and she wants you to pay a phone bill, that's to the detriment of you. You're doing something extra that you don't need to do because you guys aren't on that level. And to that, I would say, I think, is that you generally know what kind of person, like what kind of individual person is off the rip talking to them. If she's a woman and she's telling you, "Oh, I need you to have a 6 figures, I need you to do this and do that," you know that, and you can then make that decision. Okay, you might not be the woman for me. You fine, but you may not be the woman for me because you asking for all of this, and we're not even in the stages of a relationship. You know what I'm saying? And for me, I think that's something we need to really pinpoint. I think people need to be all right with loving themselves first and make sure they good. That's a problem. Everybody trying to get in a relationship, especially us men, and we're not good. You know what I'm saying? We're not good financially. We're not good this or that. You know, we want pussy, we want a woman. That's regardless of what we got going on in our lives. You feel me?
And that brings up like a crazy question. Like, do the majority of women want simps? Yeah, I mean, like, I mean, that's a whole different topic. But
see, I will say that is an interesting topic because I actually was reading some on Instagram recently. Like literally, I was just talking to a friend about this earlier, so it's very coincidental. Where it's the argument was, well, the question at hand was, if they make about like the equal amount of income, should they split everything? Like if two individuals, right, they make 50, the other one makes 50, and they're moving together in, you know, one house, one established like living. should they split everything equally, or should there be some sort of discrepancy between the two roles, especially like in a more like male female particular roles? And when I was reading through the comments, well, in the comments, most of the women commenters that I read, they actually were saying that the man should actually contribute more to the woman, if not exclusively.
I mean,
and that goes back to the traditional roles. What was that?
If you're married or you're in a relationship, that's a big deal. Man, you're just in a relationship, you're courting. You're not married. Why are you financing her life? So, I got very clear definitions of roles and when we become one. Until we won, why am I paying your bills? Is one. You're crazy, out of pocket. You know what I mean? So it goes back to your principles and how you define things. Some dudes, they get with a chicken like they're gonna do what it takes to keep her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but
if I'm married,
no, go ahead.
If I'm married, I'll do what it takes to keep her. But if she wants some marriage level thing and we're not even married yet, like, no, I'm weighing the pros and cons of what the heck she's asking.
Yeah. Well, I'll say, like, it's a very good question to ask. And like, do y'all feel like women want more of like what they would consider as the quote unquote simps? Like, what are y'all thoughts on that? Because I think that's a very good question to ask.
I don't think necessarily women want simps. I think more so they've grown up with this ideal that men are supposed to be taking care of women. Unaware that's for a husband and wife, but they've grown up with this idea that men are supposed to take care of women. And having that, they still want that, even through casual relationships. You know, they want and there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? That's how they were raised and everything like that. There's nothing wrong with that. But right. I do think that, you know, the problem with mixing relationships and society and everything like that and our views on relationships, you're never going to know until you're actually in a relationship. You can have these preconceived notions all you want to, but until you're actually in a relationship and going through the highs and lows, you're not going to know what you want. I think most of us don't know what we want. We have this idea, oh yeah, you know, I have this good paying job. I want a woman that's going to take care of the house, cook and clean. You might get in a relationship and it's not at all what you expected, you know, and that's all through life and all through experiences. And I think that's been a huge problem, is that people are not experiencing life. They're trying to live life through what they've been taught and what they think they should be doing.
Versus actually living through it.
Experiencing it and figuring out what works for them, you know. I've dated women who, you know, they don't want me to pay for a damn thing. And not that you know, hey, you good. You know what I'm saying? I'm cool. But it was interesting dating women like that paid for their dinner. You know what I'm saying? That went to the movies. Nah, babe, I got it. You know what I'm saying? It was interesting because I had never experienced that before, you know?
Yeah. And I think that kind of contributes to what you said earlier too, is like the evolution of how we're moving away from like just the traditional gender roles. And like David said, is like there's still an underlying principle and foundation that should be kept up. But the more that we try to create more of a spectrum versus that binary approach, I think that's what's kind of leading to that. Because like I have been on dates where it's like she would want to pay, we go half, like we just pay our own way, we do half on the overall total. But it's like it's much more opportunities for conversation to kind of see how things would go, instead of the he's a man, he's paying, I'm the woman, I'm attending. And you know, it's much less defined as a binary approach. And I think I like that aspect. But I think that's a very good point to bring up, though.
But I do think like it's levels to everything, and you got to discuss it. But if I'm married and I'm able to pay all the bills myself, why would I want my woman paying bills? Go ahead, like go be fruitful with our money. You know what I mean? Like you could shop, you know, hopefully you invest some. Like you're making money too. Go be fruitful. Like why would I want? If I can pay for everything, why would I want her to pay for anything, if that makes sense? Like, obviously, in marriage, sometimes both need to work, but if I can pay for everything, that's an ideal situation for me. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it should be expected right away, but ideal, yes, in my opinion.
Okay, so I'll say, so this kind of ties in, because I know we're running up on time, too. This kind of ties into like the last question I wanted to ask y'all. So in closer, let me see. I wanted to ask y'all, what is your definition of the quote unquote real man? What does that look like to you, both as yourselves and then in modern day society?
In my opinion, a real man is a person that this is gonna go back to the Bible, but a real man is a person that thinks love first in all aspects of his life. So I'm not talking about just relationships. I'm talking about dealing with everyday people. I'm talking about the perspectives of the world. Like, you have to think love first. And I think that's one of the biggest aspects that's missing from men, because society tells men not to love. You know what I mean? But the Bible tells men to love first. So that's like two separate spectrums. And I think everything starts with that.
Okay, I respect that. I like that. Aaron, what are your thoughts?
So mine is a little bit more in like bullet point form. You know what I'm saying? But there's qualities that I attest to someone who is a quote unquote real man. For me, you know, a real man, takes care of himself in all aspects of life, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Real man is emotionally intelligent, knows how to handle himself and conduct himself in public and in private. You know what I'm saying? Has control and grasp of his life, essentially. And also, I agree with his definition, has love for everybody, but takes care of the people in his life. You know, realize that there's a goal in life, whether it's marriage, through work, whatever, and realizing that you first have to understand who you are and work towards that goal and help those along that way. You know what I'm saying? For me, a real man is not selfish. A real man takes care of business, essentially.
I respect that too. I like it. I like how it's I like that bulleted approach that you took too. Okay. All right. Well, was there any closing comments or anything from either of y'all before we head out?
Man, I'm gonna add one more thing, bro. Love and principle. Gotta be principled as well. Yeah, man. That's the last part of man to me, but I enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, man, likewise.
I agree. I told y'all would. Y'all didn't believe me at first. Yeah, y'all know I do my research ahead of time. I make sure, make sure we bring all the little subtopics to the table, and it's really making sure that, the conversation could be held where it's like, one, allow y'all to express yourselves as individuals, but then two, challenge whatever views that you have. So, yeah.
Good. I think you got us both. Darius, you got us both on the faith one coming up, right?
Oh yeah. On the theology. Theology is going to be a spirituality versus religion. So I think that's going to be a good one.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely a good look, man. I'm gonna have to do some research for that one. This one, I'm off the top of the dome. Didn't think too much about it, but I'm gonna tap in before I look crazy on camera.
Nah, for
I probably
sure.
already look crazy today. Who knows?
A little bit, but you good.
We'll see what the comment section look like.
Hey, facts.
For sure.
Don't sound like me on nothing that's out of pocket.
Nah, I ain't gonna. Nah, not yet. Once we need some clickbaits, I got you.
Oh, thanks. I'll provide.
For sure. All right. Well, let me do this little outro real quick. So, to our viewers and our listeners, what are your thoughts on masculinity? And make sure you leave your comments below, subscribe to our channel for more content, and be sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And as always, much love and peace.
Just got off the clock, just got on my chill. Called up my homie Brent to see what be the deal. What you trying to do? I'm just trying to heal. Hella floated, never bloated's what I'm trying to feel. Hop in the whip and